SEL stands for Social and Emotional Learning and refers to a pedagogical approach based on the student's ability to understand and manage their emotions while setting and reaching goals, to show empathy while developing healthy relationships, with the ultimate goal of making responsible choices. Both social and emotional factors play a key role in SEL, and we all know how relevant these factors are also in the development and acquisition of a foreign language competence. This method is based on a holistic enhancement of the student's cognitive ability with its association with social, emotional, and physical skills. This attention to students' mental health and emotional well-being seems particularly relevant today as students are adjusting to the academic and emotional upheaval caused by pandemic and post-pandemic times.
SEL focuses on 5 core interrelated competencies for social and emotional development, as shown in the CASEL wheel. The first one is self-awareness, which is recognizing one's values, one's needs and emotion. The second one is self-management, which is understanding how to manage one's behavior and emotions to achieve one's goals. Then we have social awareness, recognizing and understanding emotions and experiences of other people. And this leads us to the fourth one, relationship skills, which deals with forming and maintaining positive and healthy relationships. Finally, the last one is responsible decision making, which deals with understanding how to make ethical and constructive choices about one's behavior.
One of the easiest ways to introduce SEL topics in our classroom is through the use of literature. The world of fiction is filled with emotions. The characters feel bad and good experiences just like any other human beings. And as we read along, we tend to feel things too about the characters but also about ourselves. In this way, reading not only provides context for social emotional learning, but also lets those wary of sharing personal stories participate in the discussion. This is the reason why literature offers a gateway to social emotional learning in our classroom, providing students with the opportunity to value human connection while boosting academic achievements. While analyzing the emotions of the characters they're reading about, the students not only gain a greater understanding of the text, but also a deeper understanding of their own feelings. Asking SEL-based questions at different stages throughout the reading process can be an extremely effective strategy for building your students' social and emotional intelligence. Here are a few teaching tips.
Generally speaking, you might consider anytime you provide your students with a story, a novel, or an extract to read, to go through different stages. Before reading, you can have students preview the text and focus on one or a few pre-reading questions on emotions, encouraging them to support evidence for their answers. Some possible questions could be, for example, based on the book cover or the pictures provided with the text. What kind of emotion do you think the characters will feel most strongly during the story? Maybe happiness, maybe sadness, fear, love, anger. Another question could be, what can you infer about the emotional state of the characters from the title of the story of the novel? Then, while reading from time to time, you can have students pause their reading and write about the emotions of the characters. Some questions could serve as scaffolding frame for their reflections. For example, you could ask, can you identify the emotions that the main character is feeling? Or what event or events led him or her to feel this way? Or how does the main character express emotions? Do you think these emotions are expressed in a healthy and productive way or not, and why? And how do the characters' emotions influence their actions and decisions? We could also provide students with a character emotion chart. You could then ask students how they would feel in that situation and why, and if their emotions would change during the course of the story. Then when your students finish the story, you could give them some prompts, some writing prompts to encourage them to reflect on the character's emotional development as well as on their own. Some possible prompts could include questions like, how did the main character's emotions change throughout the story? Obviously, they have always to provide evidence from the text. Or what emotions did you feel upon completion of the story? Why do you feel this way? And do you think other readers might feel different emotions about the conclusion of the story? And if they agreed with the character's approach. Asking SEL questions throughout the reading process should highlight the connection between actions and emotions, both in real life and in fiction. This will help our students to develop and apply the skills that help them to understand themselves, connect with others, and support the community in which they live.
By completing these activities, students should be able to demonstrate the relationship between a character's emotions and their actions. They will also be able to demonstrate awareness of people's emotions and perspectives while self monitoring their own feelings. They will learn about healthy ways of dealing with conflicts while getting familiar with the diverse social norms, including unfair ones. This activity is aimed at encouraging empathy and emotional response by addressing the student's need for self awareness, self management, and social awareness.
Provide each group with a scene from a selected text that addresses a topic of social or emotional significance. Here are two examples. The first one is an extract from Mary Barton by Elizabeth Gaskell, depicting the awful living conditions of working class in Victorian England and the emergence of a class consciousness. The second one is something completely different. It's an extract from Voyage in the Dark by Jane Rees, a 20th century West Indian writer dealing with geographical and cultural displacement. Once the students have been assigned the text, provide time to discuss different scenarios with group members and consider how they might best approach the situation they have been provided. Students might prepare a skit to role play, they could write a short poem, they could create a poster, or present their ideas in any other format they consider fitting. They should also discuss how they decided their choice of action. This activity promotes dialogue, which increases empathy among students. Blackout poetry is a popular strategy in language arts classrooms. Students transform an informational narrative work into a poetic wonder by blacking out sections of text, only to reveal key terms and phrases. The idea is to adapt this technique to include a keen focus on textual dialogue. So the first thing is to provide students a text selection that features a dominant focus on conversation. Then students working with partners should read the text selection. Each student may be taking on one of the character roles and reading aloud that character's portion of the conversation. Then after reading through the text, students should read the selection again, but this time maybe each by oneself. So focusing on the meaning, or also focusing on the silences depicted by each selected characters. So what they should try to do is to understand what the characters are really trying to say, and if they are maybe hiding something, and what they are feeling, what they are trying to express, and what they are also withholding. At that point, they should engage in blacking out or what we could call the background noise in the conversation, revealing only the words and phrases that really embody the essence of the conversation. And then at the end of this activity, they should read through the text again with their partner, and only this time have them read only the words and phrases that remain exposed. So in this way, they should develop their relationship skills. They can develop a greater sense of understanding and empathy for others. And they engage in literature in a way that helps them understand what others are trying to say. Also taking note of words that remain unspoken, maybe that are hidden and that we have to understand between the lines, and identify their own strengths, identifying their own needs, also in listening and reflecting on their interactions with others. You could pick an excerpt from Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte, maybe one of the dialogues between Jane and Mr. Rochester, where she fiercely reveals her independent spirit. Or why not consider a 20th century drama like Look Back in Anger by John Osborne, choosing one excerpt where Jimmy Porter, the main character, verbally attacks a huge variety of people and social conventions.
Students should be invited to extend their knowledge and further develop their ideas to reach the next level, much deeper below the surface.
Once a text is selected, pose a question to encourage student thinking and questioning of key events from the story. The idea is that students should explore deeply inside the text. At this point, have students imagine an iceberg and illustrate it with a clear waterline. Above the surface, students can cite obvious scenes from the text that led to the final events. Afterwards, encourage them to dig deeper, exploring the shades of meaning of the story, the most hidden character traits, those that led the characters to the event in question. The idea is that students should investigate the many characters' traits, the different facets of their identities that led them to this time and this place. We should invite them to read between the lines and deconstruct characters so as to obtain a better sense of how to analyze and manage not only their character actions but also their own, thus developing such competencies of social emotional growth as self-management and responsible decision-making. One text which could be a nice example for this type of activity is an excerpt from The Dead by James Joyce, in particular the final moment of epiphany when Gabriel, the main character, meditates upon his passionless life and realizes he had never really known his wife Greta in the real sense of the word. This strategy offers a creative and interactive way to engage students in understanding characters and their relationships in any given text. After students have completed the reading of a novel, for example, you could ask them to select 3 or 4 key events in the story. For example, they might choose a scene featuring a quarrel or a romantic connection or a turning point in the story. Then each student should select a focus character and consider what this character might have felt or experienced at each of these moments in the story. And in scrapbooking the characters' inner thoughts, their feelings, their experiences during each selected scene, students are encouraged to use multiple modalities such as drawings, images, magazine cutouts, and as well as quotes or as a means of sharing insights. You could also transpose this activity to social media platforms such as Instagram or Twitter. And students could then respond to classmates' images and captions in a post format, maybe adding hashtags or locations, or even tagging other characters in individual posts. So this assignment could further build on students' relationship skills, because students share and discuss their individual entries with peers, so they can identify the various relationships within the text and analyze how these relationships interact with one another. And they could then consider their own personal experience and how people react to similar situation in different ways, in this way affecting diverse aspects of our relationships with each other. An example could be maybe different moments in the story of Robinson Crusoe by Daniel Defoe. For example, they could focus on, well, the day when Robinson decided to become a sailor, and he went on his first voyage at the age of 19, when it ended in a near disaster, but he did not give in, but continued his voyages. And well, some of them were successful, others were they ended in shipwreck, until he was picked up by a Portuguese captain and was taken to Brazil, and when he became a successful farmer and so on. So the students could pick maybe some of these episodes in his life, and obviously, well, the big events on his adventure on the island after he was on the uninhabited island after he was shipwrecked. And all the difficulties that he went through, he had to face in building a shelter, in starting to farm, started to grow rice and barley, and then the meeting after 26 years of life on the island with a human being after such a long time, and so on.